Just a quick note before we begin. If you find meaning or comfort in these conversations, consider becoming a supporter of the Don't Forget to Breathe podcast. Your support helps keep these stories alive and makes it possible for others to find hope in their own grief journey. For as little as $3 a month, your support goes to offset costs associated with production. You can learn more on the information page for this episode and by clicking on the link, Support the Show. Welcome to Don't Forget to Breathe. I'm Bruce Barker, here with my co-host, Kristin Glenn. Don't Forget to Breathe is a space where grieving parents find a voice. Today's episode is also for those who love someone who's grieving and maybe don't quite know how to show up for them. So we're glad you're here, especially if this conversation feels a little uncomfortable.
Hey, Bruce. I like this title, you can't fix it, and that's okay. I think that's, we really are a fix-it society, so we're kind of wired that way. But this certainly is not something can be fixed.
I agree. But yet so many people enter into this with the instinct to fix it anyway. Yeah, I'm going to throw guys under the bus. Guys are fixers, right? So I know in the men's groups dad's groups that I facilitate, there is that tendency that I think all of us have talked about. I mean, that may be elsewhere too. I'm just saying, speaking for the dads, that, yeah, that's our instinct, is to want to do it. But it's not because we don't care, right? It's because sitting with someone this painful just feels overwhelming. Today, we want to talk about what it actually means to stay present instead of trying to fix it.
Yeah, I want to touch on the fact that you're, mentioning how well-intentioned that fix-it attitude is. It's not coming from a malicious space. It comes from a place of just being so uncomfortable and feeling so helpless. I'm glad that you started off with, kind of that self-reflection on it being a bit gender-specific. I think we all want to fix things for others, but I have found also with my work with, couples, etc., that it often does tend to be a bit more male gender oriented.
True.
And so it's interesting to hear you start with that, and with the emphasis on the fact that it comes from a place of deep care. Can I ask you, before Kristin's death, if this was your tendency when you were with people going through grief, that you wanted to fix it for them before you learned the depth of your own sorrow and knew that child loss is not fixable? Was that an instinct that you had?
Absolutely. I didn't have any experience with anyone who had lost a child, but when it came to family or friends, I wanted to jump in there and take over, right? I wanted to do what I could to ease the pain. I just wanted to figure out what could help, what could alleviate some grief and some sorrow. I never just sat with someone. I did. I tried to fix it. And then what I felt after losing Kristin is that there were some that were trying to do the fixing thing, but most of the time they either went away, or maybe I gave off that vibe of distance,
Oh, absolutely. And I think you have such limited energy when you're in such deep sorrow that it's hard to show gratitude for efforts, or it's hard to tell people what you need, and it's tough to express what feels right and what feels doesn't feel right. So people disappear with unanswered phone calls, or if I didn't know how to answer the question, tell me what you need. I remember one time saying, I don't know what I need. I've never navigated this before. Here I am in my mid-20s going through truly the first death loss that I'd had. I was so young, and for it to be the loss of a child, I had no idea how to navigate this. And, whether people were offering their advice or well-meaning phrases, or they were just obviously so uncomfortable. I think child loss grief is so big and so unimaginable that it is super tough to sit with, and to just realize that there's power in that.
Yeah, I mean, at the time I didn't know what I needed, and I didn't know what I wanted early on. And so I'm sure that, which is totally fine with grieving parents, that you're not supposed to act a certain way. You're not supposed to, there's no supposed to's, basically. The people that were, some of the people that were around me, that if they had the skills, if they knew, they would absolutely step in to just be there when I needed them and not be there when I didn't, because I didn't know. I didn't know when I needed someone, when I didn't. And so after a few months had passed, and not a lot of months, a lot of those people disappeared, because I think, they weren't intentionally abandoning me. They just didn't know what to do. They didn't know what to say to me. It was super uncomfortable. And I believe it was easier for them just to, again, with that well-meaning phrase of let me know what you need, and maybe thinking that was enough. That, okay, he'll reach out.
Yeah.
When you don't.
No, you just don't have the energy or the knowledge of what you do need. I think I used to call the people that would just do something the shower uppers. I really appreciated people that would just do something out of their instincts or what they think might be helpful. And it was amazing the kindness that some people showed, but it often was people that I didn't ever anticipate being in my circle, where people that I would have predicted would have been supportive weren't in my support circle. So you kind of have to learn to accept help from the sources it comes from.
Yeah.
I often, from people that truly and deeply cared, it felt like often what was most comfortable for them was to try to redirect my pain. They really wanted to not only fix the pain, but to truly fix me back to my former self.
Right. Yeah. There was a point where, at some point, when I laughed about something or made a joke, and someone saying, "Oh, you got your funny back." No, not really. There is no getting anything back. It's a new way of living. It's learning to live life differently. So while in my case, I was a big jokester, just a sarcastic and dry sense of humor and make people laugh, that didn't come back in its original state. It was different. There was a little bit of sensitivity to what I was saying if I was making a joke, where before I didn't think about it, of how it would land. And now I did. So it changed. It was different. So there was not getting anything back. It was a new version of the old me.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
Makes so much sense.
I think that, and really the point of this episode is to educate, I guess is the best way to say it, those who are walking with someone, or those who are curious. I know that you've had it mentioned to you, and some of the feedback about the podcast is those who have not had that loss felt, oh, I don't know if I belong here. Like they almost feel like, like we talked about before, going into a bedroom, right? Going into those bedrooms. On one of the episodes that I mentioned, I felt it was sacred ground. It was and I think that there's a little bit of sense of that, of going like, wait, this space is just for parents who've lost a child. And yet there's so many things that we talk about that is really to help everyone. Like, how can you best support and not be a fixer? How can you basically, instead of being a fixer, be a witness? I mean, a witness just sees, right?
Yeah,
and that's what that's what we're looking for. So that's what, especially early on, is just being there. I know that's such a catchphrase of being there. So maybe holding space and being present, or being a witness. Everything that we talk about in any of the other episodes is something that someone can take, but this place is for those walking alongside someone who've had that loss, this place is for you as well.
Yeah, I really hope that this, continues to evolve into a space that feels like everyone can gain some perspective.
Yeah.
Because tragically, child loss is not uncommon. I think I also said in the former episode that it impacts 1 in 6 people that become parents in their lifetime will also experience child loss. So 1 in 6 when you look around a room full of parents, right? And when you think of what people's worst fear are that that are parents, this is it, this journey of outliving our children. And I think that term witness is powerful because it is a role of staying present, of being curious, of not rushing to fill silence or to soften the hard truths that as bereaved parents we're searching for. My dearest friend asked a physician how long my son suffered. How long did he know that he was in danger? And he was young, but I needed to know that. And everybody else was really shushing that and saying, don't think that way. But I had to know what his last minutes were like. And to have someone say 18 to 25 seconds. I remember counting that every day. Counting to 18, counting to 25. And she didn't soften the hard truth. She just asked it. So I, as his mother, could know what was the moments of distress and his end of his time here. And yeah, it was uncomfortable. But she was curious about what I needed to know, and she acted on it. And it gave me some comfort. Not peace, but it let me be his mother. Yeah. That's what I hear from parents a lot is like, don't take away my parenting. When our children are our children on earth, there's a lot of uncomfortable things that we have to go through. Whether they're very ill or they're in trouble or they're making bad choices or they ask questions that we're not sure how to answer. We go through such uncomfortable times with our children, but somehow after their death, we're not allowed to ask those questions anymore that would let us have knowledge of our children, even in their death. I don't know. That just struck me as someone that really knew how to be witness and curious and not soften what I was saying.
Yeah, that brings something up for me. So I think getting to the concept of fixer and witness is, so we know a fixer is trying to change the outcome. You try to change something. Well, the outcome's already happened.
Right.
So you can't change it, right? Where a witness is going to accept their role, not try to change it, but they're going to stay present in it. And part of that is not turning away, right? So it reminds me of a moment I had gotten really ill. I was in an emergency room. This is when I was married, and they were trying to figure out what was going on. And at one point, my former mother-in-law came in, someone you definitely want to play poker with because everything's on her face. There's no hiding it. And the thing is, she immediately turned away.
Wow.
And said, okay, all right, I'm going to take off now. Then what I felt was, what is she seeing that I'm not seeing?
Right.
Because I didn't know what was really going on. And I was like, okay, I'll let the professionals figure it out. But then when she turned away, then I started to wonder, right? Where if someone is there and they just continue to look and not pretend nothing's going on, but they're there, they're looking at you, they're with you, they are present, they're witnessing whatever is going on. Because by turning away and walking away, had she been the only person coming in, then I would have immediately felt alone.
And scary, right?
Yeah. So,
because if she can't be with you, like, how bad is this?
Exactly. So then that sense of being alone that a grieving parent feels when someone, because they're uncomfortable, turn away, it becomes scarier. You feel more alone. So what we're trying to say is stay there, be that witness, be present, and know you're not the doctor. You can't fix it, but to be there. And you may never say a word, but just your presence. And you know what it feels like when you have somebody in the same room, that sense of, well, one, you're not alone, but I'll talk about relationships, and people have heard this phrase, we can just be in the same room or be in the car together and we don't have to say anything. You feel it, right? So it's the same with this. So those that are listening that are walking beside someone, you don't have to have the right words. You don't have to find some comforting phrase. Literally just being there. That's it.
It sounds so simple, doesn't it?
It does. But we're not taught how to do that. No one knows how to do that. When we feel uncomfortable, the first thing we do is you get out of an uncomfortable situation. That's human nature.
Yeah. I mean, it's back to the basics of fight or flight. Let's fight this by using platitudes or trying to fix someone. I think that's kind of fighting grief and not letting it just settle in, or you flee it because you can't sit in that space. So that fight or flight. And I think to have people that just unflinchingly are just let it be. And I think what you said is so right on point. It's like the consistency over time. There's so much support in the beginning that it's often just overwhelming. There's people coming and going. There's so much food. There's so much questions. There's the memorial to take care of. And then poof, it's like, where did all those people go?
Right.
I used to advise people to, put a calendar together and tell people, please call me in 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. Please check in, because a lot of people disappear after those first, weeks, months, and then they're not witnessing your grief and how it ebbs and flows and deepens and goes all over the place. I think so many times we're in such shock in the beginning that we look like we're doing, quote, okay. I mean,
sure.
I spoke at my son's memorial. I felt like I was aware of people there, but was absolutely incapacitated for a year. The people that didn't give me the consistency of witnessing my grief didn't witness the reality of the foreverness of it. They saw kind of a snapshot of it. And those first weeks are not the reality of the depth of the sorrow.
Yeah, it's the long game, so to speak. It's, again, there's plenty of people around early on. And, again, for our listeners who are walking with someone or want to know, what do I do? You simply show up. And again, it's just a phone call. Hey, I'm thinking about you. And not, how are you doing? We've been asked that question 1,000 times, and our instant default response is, I'm okay. No, but ask, if you want to know some words to use, is, how are you holding up? We got to answer that. If you're asking me that question, I've got to answer it. But if you ask that question, be there for the answer. And know that it might not be something that you're comfortable with. And that's okay. The more time that we can spend being uncomfortable, the more comfortable we get. Right?
Absolutely.
So I think it's it's staying there long term, continuing to check in. And it's not for everybody. I get it. But we also know, as we've talked about before, our circle gets smaller. Who can I count on? And there are some that we thought we could, that we can't. And there's some that we had no idea we could, that are now, they're in the boat with us.
And I think everyone can find their niche, right? We're talking really about a lot of emotional witnessing and that intense support. If you are not able to do that, know yourself.
Yeah.
And go to the grocery store weekly. Feed the dog, take the dog for a walk, mow the lawn. If you really are not in a space that you can be comfortable in that, kind of inner circle of witnessing the deepest part of this, that's okay to give yourself permission. And I would have people say that to me. I had a couple that was really in the midst of trying to have a baby, and this was just so intense for them to be really with me. But they clockwork every week went to the grocery store for me. And it was before the days of, grocery store delivery, but they were my grocery store deliverer people. And they just put it on the front step, and we didn't really see or talk to each other because it was too intense for them. But they found something.
Right.
And I think that that's a beautiful thing, to know what you're capable of. Someone else that never really spoke to me, my son died on a Wednesday, and she gave me Wednesday cards for 1 year on my desk at work. I could count on them. And sometimes they said very little, sometimes there'd be a note, but I just knew that she was marking that passing of time. And she remembered, and she made this incredible effort. And she wasn't someone that I would have ever anticipated giving me that kind of consistent care. It was beautiful.
Yeah, it's the little things.
Yeah.
Again,
Do you have an
going
example
from being
of
a
that?
fixer to a witness. And if you're just dropping off groceries or, some special treat, if you're dropping off a key lime pie every week, eventually I may tell you not to, but it's going to be a long time before I say don't. So you just never know, right?
Yeah.
Just hint, hint. But anyway, you just never know what someone needs. And if you can't be in a place where you're okay being uncomfortable, you're right. Just those little things that you can do long term. Short term, covered. It's long term.
Yeah, the intense short-term grief support somehow indicates that that's our timeline. That's the timetable. Like their support expires, and so our grief somehow expires. It made me feel a bit that I was taking too long, or I wasn't returning to some semblance of normal. I didn't really have the grief kind of mentors for a while. But then once I met people through the local chapter of Compassionate Friends, it was really eye-opening to walk into a support group and see people that were 6 months out, 6 years out, 16 years out.
Mm-hmm.
And it was scary because I could see that they were still deeply impacted by this loss, but it also gave me permission to realize that this was going to be integrated into my new self forever.
Yeah. I think another thing along this line of being uncomfortable, being with someone, I think that it's also where we are right now in society. It's what I witness is we're filling our time and our space with noise. How much time do we spend on our phones scrolling? I see it like on the shuttle bus, for my work. And 95% of the people on that, for that 10-minute ride in that shuttle bus, they're on their phone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, can't you not sit with yourself for 10 minutes? And that was one of the things that I learned over time, was being comfortable being with myself and being comfortable in silence. And maybe that's something that our listeners can think about, is learning how to be comfortable in the silence. Because when you're sitting with someone, you don't have to have the right words. And it may be, we're talking about literally sitting with someone, there can be a lot of silence when you're there. But it's such a great form of respect with your presence, of just being there. You don't have to feel like you have to fill the space with conversation, with anything. Because sometimes that grieving parent, depending on where they are in that stage, I just need you to sit here. And it's like we've said like we've done with this podcast, it's so that people feel less alone. Well, we're giving you a little tool so that you can help another parent feel less alone. So if you're listening and you care about somebody who's grieving, you might reflect on a few things. And I'm trying to fix something that isn't fixable. Are you saying that to yourself? Is that what's going on? So are you going, am I trying to fix something that isn't fixable? Or am I willing to be present with it? And it's not comfortable. So that question alone can shift how you show up.
Yeah. Along with that, you might ask also, am I avoiding someone? Because I just don't know what to say. I'm fearful of hurting them with the wrong words. That avoidance is so common, but it really deepens loneliness, that people that are grieving already feel so isolated. So I think even the smallest gesture, a message, can just reopen a connection. Being curious about what someone wants, as Bruce said, that silence versus maybe they do want to talk about something completely unrelated to the grief, or maybe they want to share the last video they took of their child.
Yeah.
But instead of assuming that, just checking in and saying, I'm coming over. We've got 4 choices. We can watch a stupid comedy. We can watch videos of your child. I can just talk to you about everyday life, or we can just be silent together and read books parallel to each other on the couch. What seems best to you? Just like a choice is given.
Absolutely. I'll throw one more in there. Hey, I'm going to come over, and I know you listen to Don't Forget to Breathe, this podcast. I want to sit there with you because I want to learn. I want to know how I can help you.
Oh, what a
Okay, I'm not trying to be self-promoting with this podcast, but I'm simply saying, if you know they listen to it and you're sitting with them and you're present, and look at the reaction, and if they pause it, that there's something that something comes up for them that resonates, and they want to share that with you, that you're there to hear it and you're there to listen or offer it. Don't know.
I love that. Just the presence and consistency of that willingness to learn about an experience that you've never been through, and certainly hope you never go through. So to learn what this journey is like for your person is a gift.
Definitely. So if there's one thing we hope you take from this conversation tonight, it's that you don't need to fix grief to be helpful in it. Just your presence, your consistency, and the honesty goes so much further than trying to find the perfect words or explanations, because you can't fix this. And you're not supposed to. But you can stay. And that staying matters more than you realize.
I am just so appreciative of anyone that's willing to engage in these conversations, whether it's listening to this episode, sharing it with others, because it's not easy, and it is not something that we're really taught how to navigate. So if you can companion someone during this, it will have its own gifts for you as well, because grieving people are among the most authentic, lesson giver, wise people I've ever had the honor to be in their presence.
Yeah, if you want to be around someone who is genuine, authentic, and honest, hang out with someone who's lost a child or has had a death very close to them. You'll get authenticity and you'll get honesty. So whether you are grieving or you're walking beside someone who is, until next time, don't forget to breathe. One more thing. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. We are not licensed professionals, just parents who've experienced unimaginable loss. This isn't meant to replace help from a therapist, doctor, or other mental health professional. If you're struggling, please reach out to someone qualified. You are not alone. You can also contact us by going to the show notes and click on Send Us a Text, or you can visit us at our new website, don'tforgettobreathefoundation.org. Feel free to email us at support@don'tforgettobreathefoundation.org. That's support at don'tforgettobreathefoundation.org.